I had a really cool conversation with my work compatriot, where again I get to be like very vague about the business again. Yet it's almost there, but I don't want to say specifically. But there are these things to do with AI that was always to do with what we were working on. So I haven't given away anything new, but it's something that we've learned about that in the process that has been shocking to understand. And it's not even hyperbole, and it's one of these, like, the title is as it is, and congratulations. It's not clickbait. It's actually true. We were looking at what apps have been created with AI, looking around at the ones that we might be in competition with, what was their pricing structure, all of these sort of important things, you know? And not myself, but the architect. The architect had noticed, he was like, these ones are getting popular. And then he looked into what it was. We'll just say that they're powered on. So this is where I want to introduce this concept. This is the crux of the whole video. It's an API. The API is the way that you are able to have whatever source that is not homemade within your app or your website. You can use an API to communicate and then be able to use that service that you don't have, but you're going to borrow it from elsewhere. So the classic example in this is using OpenAI's generative art and generative text, different AIs that they have available to you. And here's the rub. Here's the thing. You know, and I know, but actually probably millions and millions and millions and millions of people do not know or have never heard of ChatGPT. They don't know anything about it. And it's so easy in our lives to be like, oh, I know that, so the world knows that. But they don't. This can be totally leveraged now that this fact is true. There are APIs available, this interface that you can have running with your app that don't cost anything for you to operate. So your app has it has the running cost of that you needed to have it hosted somewhere and not much else, a domain, whatever. That's it. There is not a lot of cost associated with that. And also the interaction of your users on the app, it's nothing that you're going to have to pay for as an overhead. There are free APIs. Now, the way that apps are being marketed currently is that they're telling people that they're using some kind of premium product, but really they've just put a free API into their app and then sold that to someone. So these people are effectively paying for something that could be gotten for free. So specifically, just straight up, it's GPT 3.5. So these apps have GPT 3.5 in them. They're often made by the same company. Then they are mercilessly pushed. They're just promoted in a big way, but it's all the same company. If one of them snags and gets attention, and one of them has, we saw an example where it had a record of 30 million downloads. Again, the math man, the architect, was telling me, was like, if you do the math and if you think about that, like, say they had this average bounce rate, this is however many people downloaded it, stopped, but you always get this percentage usually, it would be 8 million pounds. I was just like, that's wild. And the other thing that, like, kind of compounds my hair pulling with this is that the apps right now that are doing these kinds of things on the app stores are, well, they're horrible. They're not that good. But then it's sort of, you know, we create our own prisons, because what's wild is the reviews on them are glowing, which to me is a good indication of what I'm approaching and, you know, what I'll finish off talking about in the video. But it's crazy. So you're like, this is clearly predatory. You know that you're leveraging ignorance to sell people a product that they could get elsewhere for free. But in doing so, they didn't know it existed, and they love it when they're using it. So it's a very, very strange gray zone that you've entered at this point. Now, with what we've done and why we felt this was an affront to God, was because we're not doing that. We actually want to, you know, we're trying to give the people something that'll be fun and exciting and useful and artistic and creative, and that is not trying to rob you. You know, so we have costs built into ours. And when we interact with the APIs that we're going to interact with, it actually produces high quality, paid for generative results. So you're not going to get any of this, come on over and we'll sell you something that you could have gone to this website here and gotten for free. We won't do that to you. But of course you can believe this, but I think then there's another interest, you could just dovetail this into like sort of what I was hinting at there, the sort of technological opportunism, which I feel we are the light side of the force in this one, that we're trying to take opportunity in the fact that it opens up new horizons and we can create these new creative tools and toys and experiences for people. But then in the other hand, you're going to have that I should have considered the implications of more people being ignorant to the level that AI is at. You got to think that the 250 people who watch this, have that reflection. Like, oh, I thought it was taken for granted. There's too many things that we take for granted, and how well informed the entire world is of tectonic movements and shifts in our technology. It's like, no, not a lot of people know. It's a bad thing to assume. And then to maybe in the end, ultimately you plan for it. You're like, okay, so we need to be more just. We need to account for that people will take these kind of abuses, but then also to encourage people who are trying to do it in hopefully a cool and virtuous and just way. Anyways, what isn't that crazy? Thanks for watching.